on this order paper that is so huge. They are all the schedules. Most of those arrangements and rearrangements that have happened as contained in Schedule 2, majority of them have been carried by the departmental committees, Honorable Speaker, and especially through the appearances of the departmental chairs who came before the Budget and Appropriations Committee. Honorable Speaker, we are making this budget on a background. And the background that we have is the background of the year 2023, and I'll start the calendar year, Honorable Speaker. The year 2023 is the one we can measure whether the policies we make in this House, including this policy that we are making, which is the budget, Honorable Speaker, whether it is actually responding to the needs of our economy. And Honorable Speaker, in the calendar year 2023, the economy of Kenya grew by 5.6%, Honorable Speaker, a percentage which puts Kenya as around the 27th fastest growing economy in the world. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, in that length, then it shows that the policies this House has been making, insofar as the management of our economy is concerned, Honorable Speaker, those policies are working. Honorable Speaker, in the month of April, Honorable Speaker, our inflation was at 5%. In the month of May, Honorable Speaker, our inflation was at 5.1%. Honorable Speaker, our target benchmark for inflation as a country is 5%, with a band of 2.5% either way. That is plus or minus. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, in that respect, Kenya is actually at the benchmark of our own benchmark of inflation, because our inflation has been able to be contained, and especially because of the tools that we have been using in the year 2023. Honorable Speaker, our currency, when we first went through this kind of a process, and especially in supplementary one, Honorable Speaker, our currency exchanging to the greenback was exchanging at around 180 shillings to $1. Honorable Speaker, since then, our local currency has gained 15% against the US dollar, and it has gained between 17 and 18%, Honorable Speaker, comparative to our regional currencies. Honorable Speaker, our currency has also gained against the sterling pound and against the euro. And Honorable Speaker, this just goes to show that the policies that we made a year ago, Honorable Speaker, those policies are working. Honorable Speaker, in the year 2023, our financial organs and structures have been working on several parameters for us to stabilize our GDP and grow at 5.6%, for us to have an inflation that is within the benchmark as a country, for us to have a local currency that is gaining. Honorable Speaker, we have had to use both monetary and fiscal tools. And Honorable Speaker, many times we have seen our interest rates going up. Honorable Speaker, that has been deliberate by the Central Bank of Kenya, because number one, we needed to tame inflation, and the monetary tool to do that is of raising the benchmark interest rate. Honorable Speaker, the same tool has been successful in preventing capital outflows, because when you raise interest rates, Honorable Speaker, and you are at par or higher than the other global partners, then, Honorable Speaker, you prevent capital outflows, and at the same time, you attract capital inflows. And therefore, the issue about interest rates, Honorable Speaker, has been deliberate insofar as containing inflation is concerned, and as so far as making our currency stronger is concerned, Honorable Speaker. But the most tool that has been very successful, Honorable Speaker, has been the fiscal policies. And the fiscal policies that we have had to employ are policies around production. Honorable Speaker, our country perpetually spends a lot of money in importing and especially food. And in that respect, Honorable Speaker, actually, our number 2 import as a country is actually edible oils. Kenya spends over 100 to 150 billion Kenya shillings every year in importation of edible oils. But the issue is not edible oil, Honorable Speaker. The issue is on foodstuffs. Honorable Speaker, a year ago we came before this House and requested that we appropriate money that will go into fertilizer subsidy. Honorable Speaker, I want to report to this House that that fiscal policy has worked. That after we gave subsidized fertilizer, Honorable Speaker, our maize production, which is our mainstay, which is our staple food, our maize production, Honorable Speaker, has been able to move in the year 2023 from an average of 14 million bags every year to the last season, Honorable Speaker, which we had a yield of 65 million bags, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, that just shows, Honorable Speaker, that what we do here in such an afternoon could have far-reaching effects even to the plates of the Kenyan people. Honorable Speaker, when we grow food and therefore we don't import, Honorable Speaker, what we do is what is called import substitution. And import substitution is one of the issues that you can invoke when you want to improve your balance of payment. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, again, I want to commend this House for always passing very responsive laws and policies, which we can clearly now see the results, that our economy GDP is high, our inflation is contained, and our local currency is gaining ground against the international currencies and also the regional currencies, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the current budget of the year 2024-2025 is a budget of, and I want to members to get this figure correctly, because it's changing slightly from what we passed on the budget policy statement. And therefore, we have scaled down our expenditure from the 1.18 trillion Kenya shillings, Honorable Speaker, to this budget figure, which is 4.006 trillion Kenya shillings, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, the budget for this financial year is 4.006 trillion Kenya shillings, Honorable Speaker. That is also a climb upwards from the tabled estimates by the National Treasury, because we had to respond to other emerging issues, which I'll be enumerating in brief as I continue, Honorable Speaker. How we are expending this money is that around 2.39 trillion Kenya shillings, roughly 2.4 trillion, is going to the expenditure of national government, which also includes the Judiciary and also Parliament, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on top of that, this country will be spending over 1.233 trillion Kenya shillings in consolidated fund services, Honorable Speaker, which we call CFS. And CFS, Honorable Speaker, over 1.08 trillion Kenya shillings will be going into the payment of interest rates for our financial obligations. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, I'm talking about these things because they have a ramification of a member who would want a water project or a roads project. Getting the full picture is important so that we also consider where our country is. Just for members to buttress that point, the budget is 4.006 trillion, out of which, Honorable Speaker, the national government expenditure is 2.39, approximately 2.4 trillion Kenya shillings. Honorable Speaker, the money is going to consolidated fund services is over 1.233 trillion, and out of which over 1 trillion Kenya shillings is going into the payments of interest rates for both domestic and foreign financial obligations. The only sunshine in that, Honorable Speaker, is that over 750 billion will be going into paying domestic debt, Honorable Speaker, in terms of interest rates, and therefore this is money that could end up in the pockets of Kenyans. But the other item, Honorable Speaker, is the equitable share, which currently now starts at 400.1 billion Kenya shillings, which is also an upward trajectory, Honorable Speaker, because this House supports devolution. Honorable Speaker, there are a few areas I want to highlight. One, Honorable Speaker, is that we have been able to climb down on the deficit. The deficit for this financial year is roughly 606 billion Kenya shillings. Honorable Speaker, if you check a year ago, this House was considering a deficit of close to 800 billion. Honorable Speaker, we have been able to come down in terms of deficit from the year 2023-2024, where we now have a deficit of 5.83% deficit to GDP ratio. We now have a deficit to GDP ratio of only 3.83%, Honorable Speaker, which is commendable. It shows that we are borrowing less because we also want to emancipate ourselves as a country from overborrowing, Honorable Speaker. I want to highlight a few things, Honorable Speaker, which are of interest to the people of Kenya. One, the education sector continues to get the lion's share of the money we appropriate, Honorable Speaker. The proposal before this House is that we are recommending approximately 700 billion Kenya shillings that will be going into the education sector in the Republic of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, there is money for basic education. There is money for higher education. There is money for practical, for TVET and TTIs, Honorable Speaker. There is money for KMTC, even if it is in the health sector, Honorable Speaker. And just to highlight some of the issues. One, Honorable Speaker, is that in the tabled estimates by the National Treasury, members raised concerns about an element of school feeding program, Honorable Speaker. The Budget and Appropriations Committee listened, and I want to report to this House that we have already provisioned 3.5 billion Kenya shillings for school feeding program, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, in Kenya there are many children who cannot access basic education devoid of food, Honorable Speaker. And therefore the Budget and Appropriations Committee responded to that, and we have appropriated a roughly 3.5 billion Kenya shillings into the school feeding program. Honorable Speaker, on top of the estimates that we are tabled by the National Treasury, this Budget and Appropriations Committee representing this House, we have also, in consultation with Honorable Meli, who is the Chair for Education, I can assure this House also that there is now sufficient resources to confirm the JSS interns into permanent and pensionable terms, Honorable Speaker. The JSS interns have done an incredible job for our country. They have given their labor at a very low rate, Honorable Speaker. They have helped our country for the last 2 years. It is now our time to also reciprocate by recommending that PSC confirm to permanent and pensionable terms the JSS interns. And from this floor of this House, Honorable Speaker, I want to request TSC, as we appropriate these monies, kindly do not wait up to January of 2025. Please hasten the confirmation of JSS teachers immediately that we pass this budget, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, also, there are all 46,000 interns. Our proposal as Budget and Appropriations Committee is that we take care of all the JSS interns, Honorable Speaker. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, agriculture, chaired by Honorable Mutonga, is the cornerstone of our economy. Honorable Speaker, cornerstone not just in productivity, but also in engagement. 70% of our rural population, Honorable Speaker, are engaged in agriculture. And that is why we will be requesting this House, through the proposals that we have brought forth, that we appropriate Kenya shillings, 10 billion Kenya shillings, that will go into fertilizer subsidy, Honorable Speaker, so that we continue supporting our farmers. Honorable Speaker, we are also anticipating and asking this House to also appropriate the monies to new KCC, some of which was in the supplementary that we dealt with this morning, and others in this main estimate, so that we continue also supporting our dairy farmers, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we have also put some money for sugar reforms out of the farmers who previously supplied sugarcane to public sugar factories, Honorable Speaker, and they are still old arrears. We have also input some of the money, Honorable Speaker, so that we clear those deals. Honorable Speaker, in the coffee cherry fund, we have also put in 2 billion Kenya shillings on top of what we had appropriated in the supplementary estimates, so that we also support our coffee farmers who, Honorable Speaker, deserve much more than they are getting. Honorable Speaker, in the fertilizer subsidy, there is also a component of KTDA subsidy, so that we also support our tea farmers in regards to fertilizer. Honorable Speaker, Kenya, there are areas that are arable and they practice crop agriculture. But Honorable Speaker, Kenya also has very robust and hard-working pastoralists, Honorable Speaker. And in that regard, Honorable Speaker, when we had the long rains, some of our brothers and sisters lost their livestock. When we had famine, some lost their livestock. When we had glitches in insecurity, some also lost livestock. Honorable Speaker, to set the thread, we have put in 1 billion Kenya shillings for livestock restocking of the Kenyan pastoralists, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, there are many other areas around agriculture, but because of time, let me go to the other issue, which is health. Honorable Speaker, this House passed new laws, which is SHIF, Honorable Speaker. And in those laws, we propose to have funds inside those laws, Honorable Speaker. We have provided seed money, Honorable Speaker, for operationalization of those funds as we aim universal health coverage for all the Kenyan people. Honorable Speaker, on roads, there are many stalled projects. We have also appropriated and we have a proposal. Road sector is receiving close to 180 billion, Honorable Speaker. But out of that, over 80 billion Kenya shillings goes into maintenance. Maintenance is fuel levy. Honorable Speaker, I want to assure this House that even during the mediation, one thing that we put forward, and I want to report it is successful, the monies that has been coming to the constituency road committees through KERA will continue to be channeled through constituency roads committee, Honorable Speaker, under the patronage of the members of parliament in our respective constituencies. And Honorable Speaker, on the same, we have what we call development partners funded, which is around 70 billion, which is around 60 billion, Honorable Speaker, or thereabout. But in a nutshell, the global figure, Honorable Speaker, yes, we have climbed down in terms of roads, in terms of the budget, but the budget that is there, we are channeling into, first of all, completing the stalled and ongoing roads projects, Honorable Speaker, so that we are prudent enough. The utility of a project is derived when the project is complete. When the project is not complete, there is no value for money. There is no utility derived by the Kenyan people. And that is the wisdom of first completing the ongoing projects before we start off new ones, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, our judiciary, in terms of access to justice, we have added more money to our judiciary. For the first time, the judiciary, which is oversighted, Honorable Speaker, by JLAC, led by Honorable Murugana, will be getting 24.6 billion Kenya shillings, Honorable Speaker, which is a step forward. Because we want to support all the arms of government, because that is how a modern state is shaped. Honorable Speaker, for the first time again, this budget is breaking many records. Those who are here in the morning, we debated the issue of the division of revenue. And I see here, Honorable Speaker, looking at the faces, we also have prospective governors. To make their work easier, even those who are already serving, Honorable Speaker, and to guarantee efficient access of the services offered by the county governments. Honorable Speaker, we have upped the equitable share from the previous 385 billion Kenya shillings to the current under consideration of 400 billion.1, Honorable Speaker. That means better services in our county governments, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, equalization fund, We are also appropriating around over 10 billion Kenya shillings, that money that will go into making Kenya grow together. All parts of the country matter. It is important for this House to support all of us so that we enjoy the cake that we are baking as a country. Honorable Speaker, I want to talk slowly here because NG-CDF, the previous amount on NG-CDF was 53 billion Kenya shillings. Honorable Speaker, the proposal before this House, there is now a proposal for NG-CDF of Kenya shillings, 62.9 billion Kenya shillings. If you do the math on average, constituencies might get, based on the current formula, maybe between 175 to an upward of maybe 250 million Kenya shillings. Honorable Speaker, GAF, our women leaders are doing an incredible job, Honorable Speaker. And I want to commend the President because the chairperson, Honorable Jane Kagiri, has been fighting for the rights Honorable Speaker, one thing that I have to admit, this House has got very intelligent women leaders who are shaping the discourse in this House. And they are doing the same even in our constituencies and in our counties. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, on top of what was already there at the GAF, there is a proposal to add an extra 500 million Kenya shillings to GAF, Honorable Speaker. That money was not there. This is fresh money, and therefore it is an addition. Honorable Speaker, electricity connection is not just a social investment in Kenya. It is also an issue about our environment, industrialization, and economic growth. And I want to report to this House, as I said during the budget policy statement, on top of the budget that is given to the energy sector, there is an extra, and I want to commend the Energy Committee, led by Honorable Kawaya, for doing a very thorough job on that, Honorable Speaker. We are proposing an additional 14.5 billion Kenya shillings, which will be shared equally among the 290 constituencies. And every constituency will be getting Kenya shillings 50 million for connectivity of electricity in our constituencies and villages, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, what we have done, constituencies like Nairobi, where there is higher connectivity, there is also a challenge of lighting. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, in the narrative of that vote, we have been very categorical that it is electrification and other interventions which could also include street lighting, Honorable Speaker. So that if a constituency has higher connectivity, Honorable Speaker, their challenge of lighting will be sorted by the 50 million per every constituency. Honorable Speaker, this House, Parliament, many times we confuse Parliament to mean MPs. Many times we confuse that the only people who are here in Parliament are the elected representatives. But Honorable Speaker, even the presentation I'm doing today has been concerted effort from the clerk of the National Assembly, Bwana Joroge, down to the Parliamentary Budget Office, led by Dr. Maside, and other incredible people, Honorable Speaker, who are our staff, like Dr. Abel, there is Madam Julie, there is Bwana Dan Kachumbo, and all the others. I've mentioned those to represent other people who work in Parliament who are not necessarily elected, but they serve the people of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, this House also has our members of Parliament. We have our constituency offices, Honorable Speaker, where the people who work under us to offer efficient service to the people of Kenya are domiciled. Honorable Speaker, let us be fair to these people, and we have been so in our budget, that the staff of Parliament, staff meaning from sergeants all the way to the clerk, they have not had any increment of salary since 2016, Honorable Speaker. The constituency offices, Honorable Speaker, people who work for the Kenyan people, when you are feeding bursaries, they are the people who do it, Honorable Speaker. They have not had an increment of salary just like any other civil servant. We are proposing resources for an additional, Honorable Speaker, of 10% of all the staff, Honorable Speaker, both the permanent in the National Assembly and those in our constituencies, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this is a budget where the Kenyan people are winning. It is a budget where our economy is winning immensely. It is a budget that is also responding to social investments like education, like healthcare, and all the others. And the aim of this budget, Honorable Speaker, is not just to bake the cake, Honorable Speaker. It is also about how the cake goes to the people of Kenya, Honorable Speaker. Those who take part and those who don't. And that is why even in terms of welfare economics, Honorable Speaker, we have incorporated it. Transfer of monies to the 70 years plus 70-year-old and above, Honorable Speaker, is there. Included those who got registered recently, Honorable Speaker. And the proposal of this House is that the 70-year and above, who are our parents, they should not continue to receive this money through the bank accounts. They should be sent on M-Pesa and all the other platforms so that they access this money at our villages, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to thank everyone here. To thank the Budget and Appropriations Committee, of course, with our Vice Chair, Madam Mary Emase, and all the memberships. To thank the departmental chairs again, the members of this House, all of them, including the leaders, Honorable Kimani Shongwa, Honorable Opio Wadai, representing both sides of the House, because this has been a very collaborative process. And Honorable Speaker, this budget, because we have gone through it, will make our economy better. Honorable Speaker, with those many remarks, because we work together with the departmental committees, I want to request one of the chairs of the departmental committees, Honorable John Mutonga Kanyuithia, to second this motion.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to second the adoption of the Budget and Appropriation Committee report on the budget highlights for the year 2024-2025. Honorable Speaker, we have realized that the budget has been increasing over time. And this increase is caused by the increase in the population. It is also caused by the increase in the demands for money. It is also caused by the increase in demand for development. And that increase is commensurate with the levels of development we are in, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I would like to thank the Budget and Appropriation Committee for working overtime to make sure that they deliver this product in time and in the quality that the Chair has very eloquently put. Honorable Speaker, we are here today to pass or discuss this budget and adopt it. Adoption of this budget, Honorable Speaker, is progression towards completion of the budgeting cycle. Our recess in the last month of May has been very usefully utilized in the preparation of the budget from the individual committee level to the budget and appropriation, and the proposals that have just been read to you of 4.006 trillion budget have been constituted with very careful consideration of every sector in terms of their demands and in terms of what they need to do over the next 1 year. Honorable Speaker, I just want to pick a few highlights as I second. One, the midwifing of this particular budget has been a process that has costed people time. It is a process that has led to a lot of consultation. The ministries, the departments and agencies have presented their issues. They have been in constant communication with the sectors, and they have also therefore been able to articulate exactly what they need in terms of their budget. And I am sure there hasn't been a major variation or deviation between the budget policy statement that was brought to this House early in the year and the actual budgetary estimates that have been presented this afternoon. Honourable Speaker, the budget has been made to finally respond to the needs of Kenya as an economy, to finally respond to the needs of the people of this country, to finally respond to the development needs of the people of Kenya, and to finally respond to cutting down on imports, especially in the agricultural sector, where the chair has eloquently put that, Honourable Speaker, we are moving towards import substitution. The idea of making sure that we have our own food is one way of curbing importation. On the other hand, Honourable Speaker, the substitution, especially of the edible oils, I'm aware that the ministry or the agricultural sector is in the process of ensuring that we can produce edible oils as a country and stop spending well over 150 billion every year to support importation of edible oils. Honourable Speaker, the notable macroeconomic parameters that the chair has presented in this House, including and not limited to the strengthening of the shilling, the lowered inflation rate, the student growth rate, and also the fiscal consolidation that has led to major reduction by 2% of the fiscal, of the deficit, is a clear direction, a clear indication that this country is moving in the right direction and the economy is growing. Honourable Speaker, the Kenya Kwanza government, which has sat down and made very clear proposals, policy proposals, has clearly come up with the policy proposals that are leading us in the right direction. The budget that we have basically had this afternoon touches on different sectors. Honourable Speaker, education is key to this country. Uneducated people or ignorant people cannot lead, cannot grow a nation. Kenya as a country is known to have the best educated people in Africa. And this budget reflects to that spirit. Honourable Speaker, the allocation of over 700 billion shillings to the Kenyan education system attests to the fact that we want our children educated and we want to continue reducing the cost on education so that most of the Kenyans can access education. Honourable Speaker, we have also seen budgetary allocations to other sectors. And I do not need to highlight every sector, Honourable Speaker. What I want to conclude by saying is that this budget has been very finely balanced. And Honourable Speaker, notably, this is one of the processes that is not heavily contested between the majority and the minority. It's one of the processes where the spirit of this House is felt and the spirit of this House as a parliament is exhibited. Honourable Speaker, we would like to see more of this, more of agreement, more of concession in lawmaking so that we may be able to move forward and do better a job as a people and as leaders of this country as we have done in the budget process. Honourable Speaker, we are looking forward to have the appropriation bill and also there will be the finance bill. I would look forward to the same spirit that we have today. People who are happy to do the proposals on the budget, also to look at possibilities of raising money to be able to finance that particular budget, and that we do not have glaring disagreements between ourselves and our friends on the other side. Honourable Speaker, many sectors have been looked into and many sectors have been supported. To the extent possible, we are looking forward to a year that is going to be activity-filled, a year that is going to cause more reduction in terms of borrowing, a year that is going to cause to lead to more support to development. Honourable Speaker, with those very few remarks, I wish to second the adoption of the report by the chair of the Budget and Appropriation Committee. I thank you.
Honourable members, I now put the question. I now propose the question that this House adopts the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the consideration of the estimates of revenue and expenditure and the median term for the financial year 2024-2025 laid on the table of this House on Wednesday, 5th June 2024, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 2021 of the Constitution, Section 39 of the Public Finance Management Act, of 2012 and Standing Order number 239. 1. Approves the issuance of the sum of 2,302,832,508,617 shillings for the Consolidated Fund to meet the expenditure during the year ending 30th June 2025. In respect of the votes contained in the first schedule, subject to the paragraph 3, that's the Committee of Supply. 2, makes the policy and financial resolutions as contained in the second schedule to the order paper. And 3, orders that the Speaker do leave the chair to facilitate the consideration of the said budget estimates with respect to each vote and program in the Committee of Supply as contemplated under Standing Order 240, consideration of the estimates in the Committee of Supply. Before I entertain your point of order, I would like to recognize the following schools: Kabare Girls High School from Gishugu constituency, Kirinyaga County. I also wish to recognize, seated in the public gallery, Musuvo Mixed Secondary School from Mwingi Central constituency, Kitui County. And on that, I will allow Honorable Mulyungi, member for Mwingi Central, to welcome them on behalf of the National Assembly.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I welcome all the students and schools who are here today visiting us to Parliament. Madam Speaker, I encourage all the students who are here to work very hard to succeed in their education and their careers, and aspire one day to be members of Parliament and senior public servants. Travel back home safely and pass our regards to your parents. Karibuni sana and God bless you. Asante.
I'll let you have your point of order, but I hope it's relevant, because if it's not, I'll have you sit down. Yes, okay. What's your point of order?
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the Chair of Budget. The document.
What's the point of order?
Yes, the document we have reflects 306 billion, but not 2.3 trillion. So we want to know, where is that document? The one which was printed is 3.6 billion.
Sorry?
The document which we have is 306 billion, but not 2.3 trillion. So we need to contribute to a document which reflects the figures that have been mentioned by the Chair of Budgets.
Which document are you referring to?
It is on the report on the consideration of the estimates of revenue and expenditure for financial year 2024-2025 at the medium term. And if you look at the total, it's 306 billion. Which page? The last page. But not the 2.3 trillion as mentioned by the Chair.
Honorable Chairperson, since I do not have that particular document, maybe you can respond, because I do not have that one.
Honorable Speaker, this document is containing many figures. I'll sit down with my brother so that we go through it. The data is correct, the information is correct. However, it needs to be read alongside all the others. But I'll guide him, Honorable Speaker.
Okay, let's proceed. Yes, Honorable Wamushomba, what's your point of information?
Madam Speaker, I rise on a point of information which I may need some clarification from the Chair of Budget's Appropriation Committee, and I refer to the Constitution of Kenya, Article 221.
So who do you wish to inform, the Budget Chair?
I want to inform the Chair so that he can respond probably to the House.
Let's hear first.
Article 221 of the Kenyan Constitution says at least 2 months before the end of each financial year, the Cabinet Secretary responsible for finance shall submit to the National Assembly estimate of the revenue and expenditure of the national government for the next financial year to be tabled in the National Assembly. According to what I understand this, Madam Speaker, a budget caters for both revenue estimates and expenditure estimates. Looking at what the chair of this committee has been exposing to the House, it is expenditure. So I want a clarification whether the revenue estimates have been tabled and whether that revenue estimate that was tabled includes the many loans that the government of Kenya is struggling to pay. Thank you.
Honorable Wamushomba, if you recall, I think it was the 30th of April, yes, that the minister submitted the revenue. So you're 2 months behind. Yes, all those steps have actually been ticked off. So if you are following the calendar year, because when we came in February, we immediately dealt with the budget policy statement. Yes, the revenue was submitted on the 30th of April. Yes. And in fact, what I'll do while you just go to table office, you'll be able to find it. That is done 2 months before. Yes, let's proceed. We won't waste any time on that because, yes, let's, who do I give an opportunity here? Yes, I know. Let me just check who's here. Okay, and I was just checking the chairpersons who are ready. Yeah. You know, that's why some members nowadays boast that they don't come to Parliament. Yes, because if someone comes to Parliament, you'll be able to know that. So, Honorable Pukose, member for Endebess.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Just to inform members that the chairpersons would, in this type of debate, would have priority, but I'll just give maybe 4 chairs, then other members, and so on and so forth, so that everybody gets an opportunity. But I'm also persuading the chairpersons that even though you have 15 minutes, just in consideration of your other colleagues, if you could make it brief so that many more people can have an opportunity, because this is one of the most important tasks that Parliament undertakes. And it's actually a mission-critical process so that we can allow more members to participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I stand to support the consideration of the budget estimates for the financial year 2024-2025. Honorable Speaker, first I want to thank my committee for having spent time with the Ministry of Health, both the State Department for Medical Services and the State Department for Public Health and Professional Standards and its sagas. And I also want to thank the Chair of the Budget Committee together with the Committee of Budget for giving us an opportunity where we are able to sit and present the various committee budget, and more specifically for me presenting the budget for the Ministry of Health, that is budget line 1082 and 1083. Madam Speaker, when you look at the budget for health, we've done we did some laws in this year. Among them is the digital health law, the social health insurance law, the primary health care law, and the facility improvement law. Madam Speaker, under the social health insurance law, in this budget, we've provided 1.5 billion for emergency, chronic, and critical illnesses. We've also provided 4 billion for primary health care fund. meaning that our universal health care is now ready for rolling down, because the other contribution for the social health insurance authority will be contribution from members and also contribution from the public. And therefore, I want to reassure the Kenyans that this bill, this budget has taken care of making sure that we are able to operationalize both the emergency, chronic, and critical illnesses with 1.5 billion and the primary health care with 4 billion. Also in this budget, we've provided money, 2 billion for the Linda Mama program. That is to make sure that our women, when they go and deliver, they are able to be taken care of as we transition to a more comprehensive universal health care. Honorable Speaker, under this law, under this budget, we've also been able to make sure that the National Cancer Institute is able to be operationalized, because one of the biggest challenges in this country has been the issue about addressing the issues of cancer. And therefore, we provided 100 million to operationalize the National Cancer Institute. We've also provided 80 million to the National Cancer Institute to make sure that the established regional cancer institute centers are able to be functional. We have regional cancer center in Mombasa, we have one in Garissa, we have in Nakuru, we also have in Kisii, which is in the process of being built and it will soon be operationalized. And this will address matters about cancer within our country, in addition to the established Kenyatta National Hospital, Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, and the Kenyatta University Teaching and Referral Hospital. In this budget, Honorable Speaker, we've also provided Kenyatta National Hospital with 450 million to be able to buy another cancer machine, the LINAC machine for radiotherapy, because when you visit Kenyatta National Hospital with one machine which is functioning, we have many patients who are waiting. That machine is working without stopping, and the patients are being put on radiotherapy day and night, 24 hours. And that makes sure that we have many patients who are on the waiting list. And this makes it very pathetic, very discouraging for many patients who depend on government facilities for treatment. And therefore, by Parliament providing 450 million to Kenyatta National Hospital to buy another LINAC machine for this financial year, then we hope that Kenyatta National Hospital will now reduce the waiting time for patients who are waiting for radiotherapy within Kenyatta National Hospital. Honorable Speaker, in this budget, we've also made sure that we're going to make sure that the 23 KMTCs, which have been set up by the honorable members, will be able to make them operational through employment of more staff, through equipping of those KMTCs, and also through making sure that there is completion of construction. Madam Speaker, this budget, as much as it has had challenges, because initially the budget ceilings that were put, we had to reduce it by close to 30% for all the ministries. And that, I want to say that the ministry should not worry, because if the government is able to meet its target in terms of revenue collection, then what it means is that when we will have another supplementary one to address the various caps and challenges that we'll be able to face in the course of the financial year. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I want to support. Thank you.
The Honorable member for the, Honorable David Kangogo, member for Marakwet East. Honorable Kangogo. Okay, he's busy. He's not ready. Honorable Tangoya? No, your time passed. Proceed, Honorable Tangoya.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity also to add my support to the Budget and Appropriation Committee for a well-done job. So I want really to thank the Chair and the committee for putting a lot of time to really come up with a very moderate budget. Honorable Speaker, listening to the Chair budget, it is so encouraging to realize that the budget, as read, has continued to really live to the promise that the Kenya government, Kenya Kwanza government promised to Kenyans. More importantly, Madam Speaker, to appreciate is that the budget has continued to really put more emphasis on the matters and sectors that are so crucial and important to the Kenyan people. To mention like agriculture, that a lot of emphasis and enhancement has been given to the sector of agriculture to ensure that the Kenyan people continue to be hunger-free. And it's something notable, Madam Speaker, that should be appreciated. It's also good, Madam Speaker, to note that the budget looked into the consideration of the pastoralist community, especially talking into the issue of restocking. It is the first time that we are actually seeing a very good positive direction in looking into the real issues that affect the Kenyan pastoralist. Madam Speaker, there is also, in the sector of security, there is an enhancement into the area of security, which is so crucial to the entire sector of this country, especially when we are handling and tackling the issue of insecurity and cattle rustling in the North Rift, and actually the issue of bandits in northeastern part of this country. The budget has really taken into consideration, and we want to assure Kenyans that with the enhanced budget and provision of the tools of service to our National Police Service and our security organs, Kenya is continued to be secure. There is a huge budget that has gone into the modernization program and even enhanced in the issue of operations. Madam Speaker, more importantly, there is a sector of government printer. That is a very crucial institution that does a lot of crucial documents to this country, to mention even the bills we use in this house, the logbooks, the title deeds, and the institution has continued to be in depleted state. My committee had also considered, and also the Committee of Budget had also considered to add and enhance the budget, which will go a long way to ensure that this important institution get back to its feet. Madam Speaker, in the budget, again within the ministry, there is Mbagathi National Police Hospital that has been ready and equipped for the last 3 or 4 years, but has never been able to be used by our security and police officers. And in the budget, there is a substantial amount allocated to it, and it is going to help a big deal to let our police officers get the much needed health services. Madam Speaker, on the issue of electricity, it is very encouraging to note the much consideration that the budget has been given, and I'm sure Kenyans are going to go back to enjoy the connectivity which was halted for some time now. Lastly, Madam Speaker, I want also personally to really appreciate that the budget really mirrors the promise made by the leadership of Kenya Kwanza, especially when we are talking about the tight state we are as a country, the austerity measures, especially in reducing the bare minimums, reducing the issue of foreign trips, so that the money gets to where it's so important to the Kenyan people. So I want to really join the rest of us to really appreciate and commend a well-done job. And I'm sure Kenyans are going to enjoy the fruit. I submit, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for the honourable Johanna Ngeno, Chairperson for Housing and Public Works.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for also allowing me this opportunity to also make my contribution towards this motion. Madam Speaker, I wish to state clearly that I support the motion. And I know very well, Madam Speaker, that these are annual estimates for the financial year 24-25, which is geared towards stimulating the economy of this country and also implementing the projects which the Kenya Kwanza government had proposed to the people of this nation. Madam Speaker, I want to thank the Chair for this great presentation and, of course, for the great balance and the serious balance he made in the distribution of funds towards several ministries, or the various ministries concerned, and the various departments which of course, are going to make use of these funds. Madam Speaker, I must also congratulate him for looking at the serious areas where many issues have been arising, especially on the areas concerning roads. Madam Speaker, I wish to congratulate the Chair and the committee for putting much considerations on the issues to do with the roads. Madam Speaker, remember, this year, rains have ravaged the country, Madam Speaker, so that even the roads which had been done properly, Madam Speaker, currently most of the roads in the country are impassable. So that we literally have to redo the roads like they have never existed before. But Madam Speaker, I would have wished our chairman, given the limited resources, I would have wished if the resources were enough. Madam Speaker, I would have wished to see the extension of what we used to call low-volume roads, which were initiated in the previous regime, being continued at this current situation, so that those low-volume roads, Madam Speaker, made very serious impact on the societies that we come from. And most of them have also been almost destroyed by the water, by the rains, and would have been prudent, Madam Speaker, if those roads were repaired, and of course, extension of those, it was around 10 kilometers per constituency, would have been also prudent if they were extended to 20 kilometers so that we could, but of course, we understand the constraints of the budget. Madam Speaker, there is also the question of electricity, which I want to thank the committee for putting much considerations. I would have also wished they also allocated more funds, and this is also a request that we are asking them, that in future, let us also ensure that the last mile connectivity, which had been initiated in the previous regime, is also continued so that people can access electricity, because electricity has also become one of the basic needs of our people, because most of the things we do nowadays, Madam Speaker, you cannot do them without electricity. So if we were to have electricity connections in every village, every household, then of course we will be able to access many developmental activities that we have. Madam Speaker, on the sector of education, Madam Speaker, and this was another area where we also had a discussion, I want to thank the committee and the chairman for their consideration of that sector. In this situation, Madam Speaker, and I think we will also be requesting or asking the committee and the chairman to please consider in the future, going future, that as much as we have allocated money for capitation in both primary and secondary education, we must also consider one day, we allocate money to cater for the school feeding programs, not only on primary, but on day secondary education. Madam Speaker, remember, the introduction of free day secondary education was a great relief to most of the parents. And it had gone a long way in ensuring that many students who would have missed education because of the cost of education on secondary boarding schools, etc. Madam Speaker, when free day secondary education was introduced in this country, most of the children from the poor backgrounds have accessed education as we speak today, Madam Speaker. We have sent so many students to universities, we have sent so many students to colleges, and we have even sent so many students abroad who are the products of these day secondary schools. Would have wished as an extension, Madam Speaker, on the issue of day, because currently most of the students are sent home from day schools, and yet those day schools are free, you don't pay fees, but the major problem affecting those particular students is feeding programs. They are being sent home to bring fees to pay for food. Madam Speaker, it would have been prudent also if the committee and the chair was to consider adding 3,000 or even 5,000 on top of capitation so that we can take that one towards feeding the day secondary school students. In that connection, Madam Speaker, we will not be having these day students coming home, but I will be taking lunch in the school because we would have allocated some money to these particular programs. Madam Speaker, on the issue of security, I've seen a very good allocation towards security, and we are hoping that the concerned departments and the concerned ministry will ensure that we have proper security in this country. On my area, Madam Speaker, which is the housing, and you will protect me from some serious consultation, loud consultation, Madam Speaker, around me. I would wish to thank the committee because they considered the proposals which were made towards this process, and especially from my committee. And the allocation which was put here is a allocation which we actually requested. And Madam Speaker, I want to thank the committee, and especially the money allocated to the housing, which is around 87 billion. Madam Speaker, remember the projects which the President, His Excellency the President, initiated in this country, especially the affordable housing, which is catering for Article 43 of the Constitution, where the government is obliged to ensure that Kenya's citizens access affordable housing that has all the facilities that are concerned, from electricity, water, and lighting. I mean, electricity, water, and also proper sanitation. Madam Speaker, the programs which were initiated by the President are very good, and we have, as a committee, also have gone around the country and ensured that the programs which have been started are ongoing, and some of them had stopped, Madam Speaker, because the law was not in place. And the committee, I want to thank my committee, which is the the housing committee, which did proper public participation. And in that public participation, Madam Speaker, we brought the law here, and this House passed the law, and the President assented to it, and which unlocked the access to these particular funds, which was the housing levy, Madam Speaker. In the current allocation, Madam Speaker, I want to tell this House and the nation that the levy which was collected can now be accessed by the State Department to build houses. And Madam Speaker, the 87 billion which has been allocated in this budget proposal, Madam Speaker, budget estimates, will mostly, around 90%, will go towards building affordable housing. And Madam Speaker, I want to say that among us the affordable housing projects the State Department are undertaking in this country, we as a committee also, we allowed them to access the billions of money which has been collected as a levy towards, apart from building affordable housing in towns, especially in major towns. They also do affordable housing in cities and in small towns in the constituencies. But the most important part of these projects, Madam Speaker, is the hostels. because when we went around also the country, Madam Speaker, we realized that most of the parents who are sending students either to universities in Mombasa, in Kisumu, in Nairobi, the hostels in those universities, Madam Speaker, are few as compared to the number of students which are accommodated in those schools. And most of those students have to go and get houses outside the universities. And there are two factors in getting houses out or accommodation out of the university, Madam Speaker. One, insecurity. Two, the cost of those houses. So the building of hostels in our universities and colleges, Madam Speaker, will bring down the prices of accommodation to our students, so that parents, when they are sending their students either to the far areas, they will not be paying a lot of money towards accommodation. Madam Speaker, I want to say this budget estimates will help in helping, in making a reality the proposals or the promises which were made to the people of this country, and we are hoping that it is going to be implemented properly. And of course, Madam Speaker, the last part, which I think is towards also water, and water is one of the most fundamental factor in our lives, Madam Speaker, and most of us, the water the rain which actually ravaged the country, Madam Speaker, if you were to ask anybody in this house, Madam Speaker, no water was saved. The rainwater that happened in this country, Madam Speaker, because there were no dams, there were no proper storages. So even the rain which ravaged this country went to waste. Madam Speaker, I hope this budget and the implementers of the budget will ensure that in future we create situations where if there was going to be high rains like we experienced in the last months, Madam Speaker, that water will not go to waste, but it will also be stored for future uses. Madam Speaker, I wish to end there by saying I support this particular proposal for estimates. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Malava, Honourable Moses Ijendi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also rise to thank the Chair of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, together with the members of the committee, for a job well done. Madam Speaker, I really appreciate this committee because as Vice Chair to Education Committee, I take note that all the proposals we were having as a committee to the Budget Committee, all of them were incorporated to the advantage of the education sector. Madam Speaker, I also want to appreciate the fact that the government is taking seriously the education sector for what it is to this country. Because when you look at the budget, the education sector has taken the most huge part of it, which is accounting for 24% of the total budget. Madam Speaker, we have, as Education Committee, we have key areas which we have prioritized in terms of budgeting, and these are the following, which have been taken care of properly by the Budget Committee. This is provision of resources to support the free primary and secondary education, as well as junior secondary school education, schools infrastructure improvement to support CBC, funding to various universities, resources to help to support students in both universities and TVET institutions, and expansion of the basic TVET and universities infrastructure, and recruitment of teachers and TVET instructors. Madam Speaker, when we look at the education sector budget, it is also well aligned to the bottom-up economic transformation agenda of the government, and this actually accounts for 35.5 billion. And the priorities in this particular area, Madam Speaker, are the following: construction of 52 TTIs, construction of integrated resource centers, and construction of junior secondary school classrooms and junior secondary school learners capitation, Madam Speaker, which was an issue in the previous financial year. So, Madam Speaker, the Education Committee noted some key areas that require concrete policy direction for future funding and a proper and seamless flow of activities in the education sector. Madam Speaker, when it comes to the Teacher Service Commission, as reported, there was a hue and cry about the junior secondary school interns. We are reporting here that we had actually a proposal to the Budget Committee that all the interns who are numbering to 46,000, all of them must be converted into permanent and pensionable employment. Madam Speaker, this has been factored in, taken care of. We have, however, allocated another 20. We proposed also for an allocation of 4.7 billion to continue with the interns in the country, so as to bridge the gap that's there in terms of teaching of junior secondary schools. And the coming financial year will recruit about 20,000, which was our proposal. This will be in line with actually bridging the gap that's there in teaching. Madam Speaker, I would report that it was very interesting that there was demonstrations, and as even these demonstrations were going on because of incitement left and right, the Education Committee had already taken care of this fact, and maybe it's just to assure all those who will be taken on internship not to make any noise, not to go on streets, because this is now provided for that when you are intern, after a particular period of time, you'll be converted into permanent pensionable. The only thing that we are requesting the TSC to do is to ensure that there's a legal framework on the program of internship in our schools, whether it's to take 1 year or to take 2 years before absorption. Madam Speaker, I also thank the committee for giving in to our requests for 1 billion for promotion of teachers. You recall this ending financial year, there was promotion of teachers, but majority of the teachers who were to be promoted were not promoted because of the constraint of funding. So this year there's 1 billion that will take care of those teachers who are not promoted. Madam Speaker, what we have to note is that most of the teachers stagnate in one job group for a very long time, over 15 years. Maybe we will need a policy on this when it comes to promotion so that this is not actually held back because of funding as it's happening currently. Madam Speaker, in the area of TVET, we are aware as members that each and every constituent must have a TVET. We have also, the Budget Committee, through our proposal, some good money was allocated to ensure that all constituencies now have TVETs. However, we want to note as a committee that there are some delays in implementation of these projects. For example, in this financial year, we have about 14 TTIs that have not been implemented simply because of delays in tendering processes in our government systems. So this maybe will require the attention of the government, the ministry, to fast-track this particular process. Madam Speaker, there also has been an allocation of some good money, 2.7 billion, for infrastructure in our junior secondary schools. This money, maybe members have to note, it will be coming through CDF, our constituent offices. The only thing that maybe has to be worked on is to ensure that there is proper collaboration between the Ministry of Planning, the Department of Planning and Basic Education, and of course the CDF boards, to ensure that there is seamless implementation of this project in our schools, because as much as we began this particular process, we have not received, for example, money. For the last financial year, money has not yet hit the accounts of CDF offices to commence this particular process of construction of infrastructure in our schools. Madam Speaker, we also note here that we were also so surprised on Education Committee during the the estimate that came from Treasury, which actually had struck off a feeding program in our schools. We pushed through this, and I want to thank the Budget Committee for actually taking into this and restoring this as per our proposal. So, Madam Speaker, we as an Education Committee want to assure Kenyans and the general population and these members that we are really keen on what's happening in the country in terms of, in view of our education in our country, education standards in our country, and considering that most persons now have taking their children to school, we want to assure the country that we will continue fighting and ensuring that all is well in our education sector, in spite of a few hitches here and there, as we move on with the new funding model, even at the universities. Otherwise, Madam Speaker, I support.
East.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support the budget estimate 2024-2025. Madam Speaker, I don't want to say a lot because many of my colleagues, including the Chair of Budget and Appropriation Committee, and when he was moving, Madam Speaker, he spoke a lot cutting across the sectors and the importance of this budget, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I just want to say some few things. Number one, Madam Speaker, I'm happy that there is some little increment, especially in capitation, through the Ministry of Education. And Madam Speaker, even as we support the allocation to the Ministry of Education, I think there is need for government, Madam Speaker, to look into the formula of capitation. Because, Madam Speaker, we have seen that the current formula is not favoring many students. And many of the students, Madam Speaker, they have dropped. Number two, Madam Speaker, the allocation they have given to water, especially on mitigation of flood control, is very important. Madam Speaker, for the last few months, we've seen many floods across the country. Many people lost their lives. Our roads were destroyed. Many water infrastructure, almost 70% of our water infrastructure across the country were destroyed, Madam Speaker. And the allocation given, Madam Speaker, is going to help in terms of mitigating the effects of that flood, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, second issue, if you see the allocation given to, especially this issue of flood control, it's very little, Madam Speaker, very small. And we are talking of the same problems, floods killing people in Budalangi, in areas of Nyanza, in northern Kenya, in Coast Province. Mr. Speaker, the allocation given of less than $1 billion is very small. We will continue, losing our people and also losing infrastructure if we don't allocate enough resources, Madam Speaker. But again, given that that is what we have as a country and our revenue, Madam Speaker, cannot sustain, so we will go as what it is now, Madam Speaker. The second issue, Madam Speaker, I'm happy that through the Ministry of Education, the Teacher Service Commission, they have allocated money for the JSS teachers to be employed permanently. And also for our doctors, Madam Speaker, who they have been demonstrating on the streets for quite a number of months. I'm happy now that the government has been very sensitive to make sure that the interns are now going to be absorbed permanently, and also the JSS teachers. Another issue, Madam Speaker, I think there is need, Madam Speaker, going forward, to increase the allocation for digitization in this country. Madam Speaker, we need to invest in technology. If we have to move as a country, now many countries, they are now in AI technology. The AI technology, Madam Speaker, some of us, we are talking about e-learning. And if you go to many of the rural schools, there are no computers, there is no power, there is no internet. So how are those students in the rural areas are going to benefit with the e-learning if the infrastructure is not there. So, Madam Speaker, I'm happy that through the Ministry of Energy, they have been able to allocate now every constituency 50 million for rural electrification. And that one is going to help our schools, the local hospitals, Madam Speaker, and also our people in the villages to get to benefit with that light. So, Madam Speaker, I want to say I support the committee report, and as a House, Madam Speaker, we need also, especially many of us who are departmental chairs, and also the oversight committees in this House, Madam Speaker, especially the Public Accounts Committee. The Public Accounts Committee, Madam Speaker, together with the Auditor General reports, they must be taken seriously in this House, so that we make sure that the small resources we have as a country, the small we have allocated, they are utilized properly. And Madam Speaker, like what I heard the Honorable Mbadi say this morning about the Article 223, it's so general that as a House, I think we need to look at Article 223 so that it is not abused. That every other time, the government just withdraws money, gets money under Article 223 without approval of Parliament. So with those many remarks, Madam Speaker, I support.
Honorable Member for Gatanga, I see that you have an amendment motion. I think I can allow you to prosecute it now. And I think the amendment has already been circulated. You may proceed, Honorable Murray. I hope it won't take too long.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity. I wish, or I beg